I got a text from Stallone about a year and a half ago, maybe about a year ago, where he said, would you mind considering playing this character again? I got this idea. It was a short text, it's Sins of Our Fathers, it said. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. And since it came from him, I was very interested in it. And I never thought I'd play the character again, of course. I thought he was going to live in the past, wearing those, Soviet trunks back 33 years ago. But yeah, I got excited about it, and I think the excitement grew as it got closer, and especially since after I met Stephen Capel, the director, and read his draft of the script. I was very impressed with Michael and Florian, and it brought me back to when I did my stuff with Stallone. How the way to make it look real is that you have to make it feel like 95% real when you fight. You have to be this close. You have to hit the other guy to the body. You have to go full on. Otherwise, you can feel it on film. You can feel that it's a little bit fake. And these guys went at it full on. And I think the difference between this fight and Rocky IV is that this is even more authentic. Rocky IV was a little more, it had a little more of it's a bit more theatrical, the way I threw Stallone around and some of the big shots that he took in that movie. It works in that picture, but obviously, in this one, it would be a little over the top. When we find Ivan Drago, he's in a bad place, getting better, because, 33 years ago, he lost that fight, and that led to him losing everything he had in Russia. All his privileges during the Soviet regime were taken away from him. His wife left him for some reason. Maybe Ivan did a little extra drinking that Russian vodka, I don't know. But when we find him, he's got this son who he's kind of trying to turn his life around, using his son as the vehicle for him to come back and onto the world stage. I saw Florian's picture, Sly sent it to me, and he was cast. He was going to cast him, and I thought he looked good. And I wasn't sure at first because I kind of envisioned somebody blonde or like looking like kind of like a mini Dolph kind of guy. Not mini, but young Dolph guy. But this works really well. And Florian and I have some kind of connection that goes beyond the physical, the resemblance. It's not so much about that. It's something else that I think we work really well together. But I thought it was a great choice. Stallone is smart. He picked the right guy. Michael B. is very impressive because, physically what he's done with his body and his boxing skills, the fact that he's remained a really nice guy, very down to earth, and he has that kind of star quality, that everyman quality that a movie star has to have. You have to be kind of glamorous, but you also have to be like the guy next door. Stephen Capel, yeah, oh, what a talented director he is. I mean, I love working with him. I liked him from the first moment I saw him. When we met at the MGM, I could tell like in 1 minute that he was going to be great for this picture. And, the way he's written me and Florian's characters.
Rocky's past has caught up to him, and also Adonis Creed is very drawn into it because the darkest moment in Rocky's life is when Apollo Creed basically substituted for him and he died. And so now this other young fighter, Adonis Creed, feels like he should take it on to avenge his father. And I'm going, my God, this is sort of Shakespearean. It's sins of the father and so on and so forth. And I thought that would be an interesting melding of two different generations. And the audience, so like half the audience, the older audience gets it. The newer audience, they're in for a new experience because this young fighter, Florian, who plays Drago's son, is quite a specimen. With Florian, it was unique because it's very, very, very hard to get the whole package. Dolph Lundgren was unique. He was great looking, fantastic body. Also, he could fight. So he had been a world champion for many years in Sweden, so he understood it. Florian is the same way. He actually knows how to fight for real. Plus, he's incredibly large and muscular. I didn't realize how special that moment is when you try to duplicate it. We spent about 6 months working on that and training twice a day. I had forgotten about it, but Dolph, being a math whiz, reminded me of all the hours we put in. So to see it kind of played out in a new generation with a new Drago, it was fantastic. And a new Apollo Creed with Adonis Creed, it was quite a challenge. And I said, wow, how did we ever pull that off? Because I mean, it was pretty brutal. But this one here is equal, or maybe better. I want to cross the ring, go up to Dolph and punch him right in his face. I really do. And I'm sure he wants to do the same. Because, wait a minute, we're not used to being on the outside of the ring. You know, we're just very, very competitive, but I'm sort of kidding. But there's that competitiveness, and it was very unusual being outside the ropes. I'll say that with Dolph Lundgren in the room. Drago represents kind of like unfulfilled dreams. I think a lot of people are crushed glories that a lot of people feel in their own lives, that they had a moment, it went poorly, and everything imploded. So now he's blaming his entire self-destruction, the fact that he's banned from Russia, his wife left him, his family left him, he's lived in poverty, on me, rather than accepting the responsibility for himself. So he's basically instilled in his son nothing but hatred and revenge. And there's something to be said for that, about how he's distorted this whole kid's outlook on life. And eventually he has an awakening on his own, and Dolph too, towards the end of the film. So they have a revelation. But it's a lot of people, you know, really feel as though life has hit them some cheap shots and low blows, and they're unhappy and they want to lash out. Well, in this film, he does lash out. You want to leave some footprints, you know, on the canvas of life. And they don't have to be big ones. Everyone doesn't have to be a world champion. It's just the fact that you gave it your best. Because that's the Rocky philosophy. He never expected to be a champion. He just wanted to go the distance and have a little dignity. And that's pretty much the ongoing theme. Rocky doesn't want Adonis to fight this young Drago because he's afraid that history is going to repeat itself. He has been through this horrible tragedy, and here it is, it's coming back at him. It's like his worst nightmare. Plus, he feels incredibly responsible and guilty to Creed's wife, who he's avoided for 35 years because he can't face her, and now he has to. And what's he going to say? He has to rescue this kid because he's going down this dark hole. And even though he doesn't want him to fight, he knows that he has to at least make an attempt to redeem himself.
I was really excited about building on just the characters. First time having a sequel to anything, being able to take these characters that we were so familiar with, that we built, you know, Ryan and I built, you know, the first time around, to see where, you know, Adonis and Bianca's relationship would go, you know, being professionals in their own right, wanting to have their own, you know, careers and passions, and how they would kind of, you know, meld, you know, together. a representation of our generation of being entrepreneurs and wanting to have their own and be their own person, but learning how to have love together as well and compromise. I thought was very interesting, and his evolution as a boxer. The first time, was more of an origin story. He had like a fight within himself to figure out who he was. So to see where he was years later, to see how that path would go, his relationship with Rocky, how that would build, how that would change and evolve. Yeah, there's a lot of things. This is a very layered film, with a lot of themes and a lot of things to kind of talk about. So I was very interested in seeing where that would go. Bringing back, Ivan Drago and his son Victor and that storyline, that history, that animosity, into into Creed and Rocky, it just made it that much more intense. Usually in the world of boxing, they have boxers usually have their sons. Usually following similar paths. It's all they know. They grow up in the gym. They grow up around it. And so it was kind of natural that just like I would be boxing after, Apollo, that Victor would kind of naturally box after, Ivan. So it was a natural fit, and everything just started to fall into place. That was, Sly's idea, and, it was a genius one. So I think it worked out perfectly. He's huge. I was like, how am I, like, what weight class are we fighting in? How are we going to do this? But we figured it out. I spent a lot of time in the gym, and I know he dropped weight as well, so we tried to meet in the middle a little bit. And he's a really, really nice guy, super humble, eager to work and learn. And we picked up chemistry really fast, in the ring with choreography and stuff like that. So we definitely started to get on the same page, and he brings a lot of emotion and a lot of range to this role. And it's a very layered performance by him from what I've seen and us working together. So I think he was the perfect person for it. I can't imagine anybody else playing him. He's a brother of mine now. Like nobody knows what that feels like unless you're able to go through that process. Now, not just that moment, but I'm talking about just the training process, shooting these 12, 14, hour days, when you're boxing the entire time, doing choreography, taking punches, every day, limited amount of sleep, like you're going through an intense boot camp. It's something that very few people know what it's like. The stakes. It's a loaded situation. Like, the history between those two. I'm somehow caught up in between the both of them, and it's like, all right, mentor, coach, father figure. The guy who killed my dad, son of the guy who killed my dad. Just the whole triangle of us was a lot of layers to kind of like fold into like moments of performance and character, things like just subtext, to have, and yeah, it made for some interesting moments on screen. So it was cool. As a fighter, they have a certain mentality. There's a certain fire that burns inside of them. There's a certain thing as a warrior that you can't, that I get in the ring for. That I have to, this is a challenge. I have to, there's certain things that, that makes them want to fight. That's something that we really want to explore. That's not just a fighter fighting. It's really a team thing between everybody, between me and Bianca. We really want to get into that. But then also knowing, Danny, I don't know if this is the fight for you right now. Her knowing that, but couldn't really show him that because that's she's his support, so that she's definitely caught in a lot of conflict, and I think she navigates it really well. There's some things in the little moments that human nature and just being real, we had to show that, maybe some doubt on her side that Adonis might pick up and feel some type of way that might drive him deeper down that road of spinning himself. So that's definitely something that we wanted to get into as well. Rocky's on board, you know. His mom is on board, knows what he's doing. His wife is on board, you know. He has a daughter now, somebody who needs him, who he has to come back to because he's not going to repeat his father's mistakes. So he's kind of came to this understanding with everybody in his circle, and then it's a team. Like, everybody's fighting Drago, not just Adonis. And I think that's the kind of support that he needs in order to win. And if he loses, then he knows that it wasn't just him. He's not fighting alone. And I think that that's something really powerful. He's awesome. Yeah, I mean, he's one of those rare directors that you kind of have a real connection with, and is very well rounded. You know, he doesn't really lack. I mean, you know, from what I've seen and what I know, he doesn't really have any real weaknesses, which is amazing and very rare to say. And like, we all have weaknesses, but at the end of the day, you know, he brings something that's him. You know, independent filmmaker. In a studio system that's making a real, you know, gritty, down-to-earth film that's real. You know, I think that's the thing. He makes the characters real, and that's something that you gotta applaud. Yeah, I can't wait for him to put his mouthpiece in, because he's gonna take some real punches.
The Rocky movies are a lot about hope and about those achieving those dreams which seem unreal. And like obviously I wasn't an actor before, and if you would have talked to me before that movie, like asking me like, could you imagine to be in Hollywood, it would be like an unreal thing. Not impossible, but it seems so far away. And you know, like it actually happens now. So I think I really can connect myself to the Rocky franchise and his. I mean, when he started the movie in the first one, he was like an average boxer, nothing special. But he took his chance. You know, it's about taking those opportunity and work hard and achieving your goals. Creed 2 has obviously a connection to Rocky 4 because Drago's coming back. But it's a whole different vibe. Like, I don't really see another connection to those movies except that Drago's coming back and Rocky's still there. But the vibe is something different. Creed was also different than the Rocky movies. So I think they're following this way to make Creed one of their own. We needed like a couple of weeks to really get close to each other. But once, you know, we built up that trust, it was just great working with him. You know, it made it so much easier, and he helped me a lot because he has the experience, and I mean, he's really big right now, a big hype around his person, which is well deserved, and he prepared me a lot for what is coming, and he helped me a lot with his experience. So I really appreciate to work with him. I think he could do easily a career as a boxer. Absolutely, absolutely. Maybe not in the heavyweight division, but definitely as a light heavyweight, because he's a natural athlete. Like, he has natural abilities, like very slick, elusive, and fast hands, good footwork. So even though he's not a real boxer, he kind of is, because he's just good in boxing. So it made it a lot easier for me than working with someone together that actually has no abilities in boxing. he weighs like 50 pounds less than me. So he moves like, yeah, you can't really touch him. So that's why a guy like me, you always have to pressure those fast, smaller guys, you know, trying to lock him up in the corner and then let him taste your power. So, but definitely he had his advantages, I had mine, and that's what makes it so interesting in the end of the day. He has to work in 2 different jobs and still has to train all the time. The conditions he's living in with his father are not the best ones. And the thing, I mean, he's fighting for a better life, obviously, but the things that he really wants is like our values like family, love, loyalty, which he never got. Like his mother is not there anymore. His father, he has his own problems, you know, from the past. And he's a tough guy, so he's not really showing him the love that he needs to get or to have. And he's not really, he doesn't feel that he's really appreciated as a son. And that's the biggest struggle inside of him. She's super nice. She very sweet woman, very respectful. It was like with those guys, even like with Dolph or her, it's like super easy to work with. They have no attitude at all. Very humbled and down-to-earth persons. So it was fun, simply fun to work with them. There's so much emotional stuff going on in this movie, on both sides, on Adonis' sides and on mine. And I think people are gonna be even twisted who to cheer for, and that's what we wanted to create in the end of the day. That, you know, that people are gonna see this last fight, and they feel for both of them, and they kind of want both of them to win. That was the absolute goal, and I think we created that atmosphere. Sly is like kind of a mentor. Same for Dolph. So I always, first of all, I like to listen to them because I try to absorb their experience, and I always like to have different point of views, different angles to see it the other way around. I think that's the way you grow. So that there are no real words to describe what it feels like when like a person like Sly takes you to the side and giving you some explanation and some of his experience. And I only can say that I appreciated that, and I was honored. I was simply honored. Steven is the guy who I would say deserves the most credits on my performance here. Because in the end of the day, I mean, Sly found me and kind of presented me to Steven, but it was his final call because he's the director. In the end of the day, he's the boss. And it's also a big deal for him because it's his big first movie, right? So he gave me the chance, and I felt kind of a pressure that under no circumstances I can't let him down, because he gave me the credits, and he gave me the credits to play this role. He thought that I'm the right guy for this role, and I worked with him day and night on my acting. We had multiple acting coaches. We went through every scene before we actually started shooting, taped every scene, tried to improve every day, and tried all different kind of angles, different variations, and he made me better every day.
It was so exciting to have Felicia back with us and for she and I to get to really inhabit scenes together, because we didn't have the opportunity to do that the first time around. And she and I have been, ringside a bunch of those days and just getting to talk and really get to know each other. And, she's been someone that through the whole of even before my career that I just looked up to as a woman and certainly as a performer. So there's a lot of life imitating art. The warmth I think that we feel personally for each other gets to communicate on screen. One of the central themes of the first Creed was really about legacy, and I think if there was sort of a condensed thematic sort of overtone to this film, I think it would be family. You get, in the first film you saw Adonis and Bianca as these millennials falling in love and navigating how, they can be in the pursuit of their career and also, a relationship. And I think this time around you get to see them really become a family unit and what that means. I thought that there was such an interesting opportunity. Obviously, Drago means so much in the Rocky films. So to bring back a character and to bring back his son in the context of this new film, I thought would mean so much to Rocky fans. And then inside of it, I think what our film has been able to do in really humanizing the villain is unique, because typically when you watch the boxing scenes, you know who you want to win, and I think there's a bit more gray area in this one. You really understand what both men are fighting for and against, and so I think I hope it makes the boxing scenes even that more compelling dramatically. Bianca understands, because she's come to know Donnie so well, why he feels like he has to take the fight, but she's incredibly conflicted because it's a huge risk, and I think particularly now as a married couple, as people that are going to begin a family, the stakes are a lot higher. The first time around you got to see them navigate a relationship in which if Adonis pissed Bianca off, she could just go back and shut herself in her room and make music. And this time around, she really is committed to this man, and so it's a different world now. When they disagree, they really have to get on the same page. What I love about Bianca is she's someone that really has her own agency and has so much going on in her world, and you definitely get to see that, including this time around having 3 songs that I get to perform in the context of the film. And I think that that's really exciting for audiences, that she is continuing on her journey. He was a very, very, very big human being, which I think only adds to the inherent danger when Adonis decides to take on the fight. Bianca supports her man through and through and really believes in him being the champion that he is. But then I think when she gets a look at Florian or Drago, she's like, oh boy. Oh boy, why him? It's so impressive, the work that Florian's done. He, was in Philly for almost 7 months and away from home and training really, really hard. It reminded me of the first time around watching Mike. And Mike also got much bigger on this film than he did even in the first. So just to see the level of dedication, because I think to really get into the mind and heart of a boxer, the physicality is so incredibly important. So it's just inspiring to see Mike and Florian really, really take that on. He's such a hard worker. His work ethic it's astounding. I think that was sort of one of the ways that we first connected. When we were doing the first movie, he was working so hard on the boxing and the choreography, and I was in the studio 16 hours a day making the music, and I think we were able to really connect with just the sort of ferocious work ethic that you have to have when you're taking on these things that are pretty big feats. When I saw his film the land. I was convinced that he was just the perfect person to tell this story. Just the mixture of sort of authenticity and the sort of grittiness and electricity that he brought to that story, I thought really translated well to our world. And then oddly, he and Ryan share so many similarities that were striking to me. Just how young they are, taking on, their first studio movie outside of having their first indie movie be received so well at Sundance, that they both are with their high school sweethearts, that they both went to USC, were there at the same time. I just thought that there was a lot of sort of, connection between them. And not that we in any way wanted to find, another Ryan Coogler. I think Steven is singular and very much, his own voice, and wants to come in and tell his own story inside of this. I think boxing is just a metaphor. It's like the brilliant speech that Sly has in the first movie, that the hardest opponent you're going to fight is yourself. And I think when you can connect the getting through whatever struggles or hardships you have in your life to something more meaningful than just you, if you can connect it to your family, to community, to your ideals, then I think you never lose. And so I feel like that has really matured, that idea has really matured in our film, and certainly that desire has matured in our protagonist, Adonis. I think it's a testament to just, I don't know, how compelling this story and this world is to audiences, that it's been able to endure for so many decades. And I think there is poignancy in it. It feels like, in a weird way, they're passing the torch to us, I think what Sly was able to do with the first Rocky, to make almost a renegade film, well before people were really doing that. And, to prove that sort of, if you believe in yourself and believe in something enough, that you can succeed. And Sly was able to prove that and continues to prove that with Rocky. And I think there's something just so exciting and inspirational about that. And certainly being a part of that as a young artist who has big hopes and big dreams, I think it's, pretty exciting for Mike and for myself and for Flory. And I think every day we come in going like, yeah, this is pretty cool.